this was gone over at great length in the White House briefing, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. I'm not, at least. But on Syria and on Russia and on this proposal that's being brought, it's been clear for several years now, or at least more than 18 months, that the U.S. position has steadily, slowly, but steadily evolved, shifted, coming more in line with the Russian position, which has remained consistent since the very beginning of this conflict. And I'm just wondering why, if the kind of proposal that's being presented, or that has been presented, is being presented now, why couldn't it have been presented far earlier in this process, at least after December, when the Secretary went to Moscow and essentially aligned the U.S. position with that of the Russians vis-a-vis Assad? Is it wrong to think that had this proposal been made earlier, a lot of lives could have been saved?
I would dispute the view that our position has moved. Our position has been consistent, which is Assad must go, that there must be space to have discussions to create that area for a political transition to move. You know, I'm not going to comment on the details of documents, as the White House said, that haven't been approved or agreed to. You know, we have long said that we would welcome, you know, Russia's increased focus on ISIL, on Al-Qaeda in Syria. Our common view is that these groups pose a threat to not only the people of Syria, but to both our nations. You know, on your question on timing, you know, again, I'm not going to get ahead of discussions that may be happening in Moscow. Hopefully we'll have more later today.
Well, you say that your position has been consistent, but it hasn't. First it was Assad must go, and he must go immediately. Then it was, well, maybe he can hang on for a little bit, but in the end, he still has to go. But that it's got to be up to the Syrian people to...
Well, it's always got to be up to the Syrian people.
Yeah,
that
but your
hasn't
position
changed.
on Assad definitely did change in terms of the timing of when he has to go. And now it appears to have changed to the point where you are prepared to accept or agree to you know, joint operations with the Russians, something that they proposed well over, you know, a month or two ago. So it may not, on that score, it may not have changed just yet because it hasn't been agreed to, but you are now open to things that you weren't open to just several months ago on the military front. And I guess I don't understand why it's wrong for people who are critics of the policy, whatever it is, to point out that if you really think that this is going to salvage the ceasefire and lead to transition talks, or think it has a chance to, why didn't you do it earlier? I mean, thousands of people have died in the interim.
We are absolutely aware of that. You know, we have been consistent in calling not only for the cessation of hostilities to continue in Syria, but also to push Russia to exert its influence on the Syrian regime to make that possible. I'm going to unpack your statement, your questions a little bit. You know, first on the cooperation. You know, at present we are not conducting or coordinating military operations with Russia. It's not clear we'll reach an agreement to do that. In Moscow, the Secretary will discuss the importance of focusing Russian efforts on ISIL and Al-Qaeda, while emphasizing the urgent need for Russia and the Syrian regime to meet their commitments. You know, that hasn't changed. We have been consistent all along on that. And we've also said that we're not going to commit indefinitely to diplomacy that doesn't achieve real results. You know, we cannot provide political cover for those seeking to pursue a different agenda. Russia has influence. It has shown it has influence. The Secretary is committed to creating the space for a political transition. Our position on Assad has not changed.
The point is that whether or not you say it's not clear we will reach an agreement to conduct or coordinate joint military operations. But the mere fact that you're considering doing it is a shift.
Yeah, I would dispute that.
What?
I would say that
It has been the position of the administration that you would not or that you would deconflict as soon as the Russians sent their planes and
Yeah.
people in back in last September. The position up until now has been nothing other than just this deconfliction exercise. Now you are considering, have proposed, or willing to consider Russian proposal, but that is in itself is a shift. It is not consistent
Our
with your
focus-
position. All right, you're obviously we're not going to get into. I have just one more, and then it's brief, and that is that your colleague at the White House and you also said that it's time that Russians have to make a choice.
Yeah.
That they have to. This is a test. The testing has been going on and on and on and on and on. It seems clear to everybody, that, except for you guys apparently, or at least it seems clear to most people, that the Russians have made their choice, and that it is kind of pointless to keep testing them when it's clear that they're not going to budge.
But we've seen repeatedly through the nature of this conflict that Russia does have influence. We saw when the beginning of the cessation of hostilities that they do have the ability to influence the regime. That is our goal here. Our points, our position have been the same all along on this matter.